very, very warm welcome. Guys, we are back with episode 6 of the Found Her Spotlight series. At Incubate, as you're aware, we are on a mission to bridge diversity in when it comes to numbers around entrepreneurship and investing. And we want to do that by shining the light on promising female founders who, against all odds, have managed to build beautiful businesses and are doing impactful, meaningful work. Today, I have with me one such founder who is also a dear friend of mine. She's a tech startup founder with over 20 years of experience, having worked at Fortune 500 companies and startups. She is the founder of Style Nook, a personal styling and shopping company that helps women find outfits based on their preferences. Conceptualized and built based on an AI based platform that enables virtual styling for over 10,000 women across different body shapes, budgets, and requirements. Style Nook has been a game changer for women on their styling game. Kuntal, a very, very warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Avneet, and thank you for having me on this show. It's a pleasure to be here, and of course, to have a conversation with you. It's always fun.
Absolutely. Kuntal, this entire series, when we were brainstorming it, I mean, we've been supported by this beautiful AI based tool called simplified.ai. And the reason this product has come around is because they realized the pain point that founders were going through, which is it's one thing to build a business, but in order to build your business, you also need to build a personal brand. You also need to build a brand narrative around what you're doing. And founders, usually time is a very, very, scarce resource. So
Yeah.
Simplified, which is an AI tool, allows people to essentially fast track their content marketing and building a brand. I know that you've been in this game for a long time. You've helped so many new brands. You've built them, helped them get discovered, helped them, sell their products and services through Style Nook. And hence, I thought you'd be a perfect fit. And you're also a techie and who's been, in this space for a long time. So I want to kickstart today's conversation with number one, your journey, and essentially understand your take on how brands can be built in 2023.
Heavy questions, but I'm going to try my best. So, uh, glad to share whatever I've learned and whatever I'm learning. I think every day is something new that kind of pops up, right? Especially the world that we're living in right now. Um, so I think I'll just give a little background about myself so people at least know where I'm coming from. So I've been in the space of AI, or what was previously known as data analytics, data science, for almost 20 years now. I started this back in the day in 2003, when it didn't have the sexy fuzziness that it does today. AI and that at that time was considered more of a nerd, techie, geeky kind of a thing. And I got into it because I truly believe that data can actually change and move things in a way that we previously didn't know. So that's how I kind of, made my way into it. And I love the idea of being able to fuse business and data and drive results. I went to Yahoo. I was in the strategy insights department. Then I went to a smaller company called Shutterfly in the Bay Area. Moved to my first fashion startup in the US, where I realized that AI takes on a very different meaning when fashion is involved or where creatives are involved. So we'll talk about that in more detail. It was a huge learning for me actually, and it influenced a lot of what we did at Style Nook. Moved back to India, joined a smaller company called Zoomin, but I got the opportunity to actually become a VP of product and marketing and use AI to kind of drive results versus being on a side function. I became a mainline function, and then after some time, I started Style Nook, which was a personal styling service and a personal shopping service. I think Style Nook came about from my co-founder and my personal pain or journey, or what you may want to call it. There's a point in time when you're young, you have all the energy to go around to multiple stores, multiple sites, keep searching, keep looking for stuff, and you're like, oh, this is me, this is not me. As you get older, yes, maybe you have that energy still in terms of like shopping online or going to stores, but sometimes you're also strapped for time, right? And I think what occurred to us was that you have personalization in music, in movies. You're able to kind of identify things so easily through Netflix, through Spotify, that you didn't know it existed before. Why can't it be there in fashion? And that's where the idea of using a personal styling and a personal shopping service came in. However, we could make it scalable because we were going to use AI as the foundation to ensure that every woman could actually access this service. So that's where the idea began.
Okay, that's amazing. Um, how long ago did you start Style Nook? And also, with your 20 years of experience, Kuntal, how do you think the realm of data analytics and AI and tech in general has evolved? Like, what do you personally see?
So we started Style Nook about 5 years ago. Can I
Mm-hmm.
actually tell you that the first version of Style Nook was not at all tech enabled, because at that time, in which I'm a firm believer of, right, that you want to go ahead and test the concept of what you're trying to build as soon as possible. So in fact, there was no Style Nook that went into the market. What went into the market was ANK, which is the first letter of my co-founder, and the K is my name, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we literally had a Shopify site where we had the questions that were out there, and we sent a link out to people. No payment gateway, nothing, right? We were basically testing, are women okay with this new way of shopping, where they do not get to see the clothes, but they have to go through an intermediary to have their clothes be given to them. That's it. That's all we were testing. So we didn't waste any amount of time on that front. We just wanted to see what happened. Do we have what we call product market fit, right? And then after that, all the other decisions of building the site out, putting in the AI, building out the algorithms, coming up with a name, everything happened once we decided that yes, there is demand for what we want to build. But we didn't actually put any energy before that, because the first thing I think you need to test is that aspect itself. The thing about product and technology, or I think even AI, right, is a lot of what we're seeing today in the market, or a lot of what is being discussed, especially in relation to AI. If you speak to anybody who's been in the field for a very long time, this has always been there. A lot of the stuff has always been there, right? It's not new. Terms like LLMs, NLP, computer vision, these are now terms that are being thrown around a lot. This has always existed in the industry for quite some time. What has happened though with OpenAI is that this has become accessible now to a lot of people. You don't have to be a coder, you don't have to be a data scientist, you don't have to kind of have any special, statistical skills in order to build certain models, right? You do need to have a sense of logic. You do need to have a sense of reasoning to kind of understand what is it that I'm going to build. What I actually think is very fascinating though, if I look at just in terms of timeline, right, between when I started and now, I think not just for AI, but for a lot of tech products, or for a lot of things that we see in the tech space, the speed has actually increased exponentially. You're seeing things come out very fast, experimented with very fast, iterated, maybe doesn't go anywhere, it shuts down, and something else comes up. But I think the speed actually has increased tremendously, which makes it exciting, but also keeps pressure on everybody.
Kuntal, we have a question that's come in where someone's asking, could you elaborate on LLM, NLP, computer vision?
Okay. Sorry, I used terms that I shouldn't have. But LLM is basically large language modeling. To put it very simply, these are foundational models that have been built using on tons and tons of data. These models have gone ahead and been able to figure out patterns that you may not even have thought of. There's unstructured or there's unsupervised learning that is happening, where they're kind of finding patterns and they're seeing what's happening. And then there is also some level of supervised learning that's happening, where there is a little bit of direction that is given in terms of what must happen, right? these large language models are pretty much sitting on top, on at the bottom of a lot of applications that we're using today. So, like for example, ChatGPT, right? And when you're typing out, let's say you ask ChatGPT to create a story for you. It's actually like sitting on the bottom of it's actually using a lot of data to understand that, okay, if this has been said, what are the chances that I can actually use XYZ and then go ahead and create the story. So that's what's actually happening on that front. Computer, I'm just wondering how much time we have. Computer vision is actually where, imagery is being taken in by the models again, and they're able to kind of understand that, okay, again, it's pattern recognition of some sort, right? But by putting in images, they'll actually be able to figure out that, okay, this is this and this is this. Simplest use, or like I think one of the most the use case which a lot of people may understand often is around cataloging. Back in, more, not even back in the day, even now a lot of cataloging is done manually. So you put in a product, you put in a picture, and some merchandiser will go ahead and figure out what it is and list down all the attributes, that it's made of wood, it has a brown polish. But when a machine has actually been fed multiple images, and it is able to go ahead and do that attribution itself. So just by the photo of a new product that you put in, the machine will be able to go ahead and identify that, okay, these are the attributes of this particular product. That's computer.
That's so crazy, because I think very recently, I mean, when this entire buzz came about, the most common thing people would say is, okay, AI is AI, but AI is not going to be intuitive enough to read body language, and, humans, it cannot be replaced. I mean, humans can't be replaced by AI because they have emotional intelligence and a lot of these things. But I wonder how long that would be true, because if they continue to read as many images, I think AI just gets smarter and smarter. Uh, you know,
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
they
You're
knew
right.
this differentiator, I guess in matter of no time, uh,
You're right.
you know.
You're right. Yeah, no, I think also as more and more applications start coming out with AI, right, and it's embedded, the machines are able to are able to understand behavior. They're able to also see what's happening. What machines can't necessarily do very well, and I think that might still take some time, is reasoning, right? So
Hmm.
reasoning and rationale and judgment, it's feeding off what it sees. But let's say a lot of our behavior or our response mechanisms are generally the same in every situation, right? At the end of the day, we're all like human. So
Hmm.
in that sense, the algorithms may be able to pick up what they see happening as common reactions. They may be able to pick up defense. They may be able to pick up empathy. They may be able to pick up when they need to kind of show some level of concern. So that, I think, will happen. It's a matter, and it can be extremely exciting. It can also be pretty scary. There have been some incidents, I think, of this bot which was created by Republic, where people used it as a companion when they were lonely, and some of the commentary which the bot went into, or some of the stuff that the bot started saying, made a lot of women feel very threatened. Now, the bot is going by trained data that it has actually used, and that bot made very aggressive statements to women, and they actually stopped using it.
Yeah, I was watching this Netflix series. It was a while ago, so I don't remember very clearly. But it was a show called She, right? Again, it was essentially bridging the entire loneliness problem, and about how the bot essentially becomes the tech girlfriend and
Yeah,
knows the personality, the potential likes, dislikes, meal desires, of the human better than what he might do, right?
yeah.
So I mean, that was really scary. And in fact, I think so. I'm just curious, what do you think, Kunta? Like, if you had to say that humans have an advantage over AI, uh, what do you think is an advantage that humans have over AI and the other way around?
Let me answer the latter part first. So I think algorithms definitely have the ability to crunch through information much faster than
Faster.
us, right? The ability to do a lot of routine tasks is something that is far more easier for them to do.
Hmm.
Scanning information, all of that. I mean, there is no dispute on that front. that they will be able to do this faster. Right now, there is still a mechanism of error that is coming in,
Hmm.
where people can't be 100% sure of what they're seeing when they use anything that is generated from an AI tool. But imagine as more and more humans kind of check and say that, okay, this is correct, and that feed loop comes in or says that, oh, that this is wrong, the algorithms start getting better, right? They learn. So I think there are some aspects on which it's indisputable. Where I think the humans actually come in is in terms of pure innovation and pure newness that can come into the world. I think in terms of connection, in terms of communities, in terms of relationships, emotions, those are things that are still very much human, and I think we will always be doing a better job of it. If you think about like leading people or directing people or being able to understand that a leader cannot be the same in every situation, right? uh, that's not something the machine will actually be able to figure out that quickly, or will be able to like sense the nuance and kind of look around it, right? If you think about driving a team, you can't have the same, you lead a team, right? So you can't have the same approach, the same tonality every single time. You are assessing the situation on the fly. You're also kind of figuring out what to do. So I think some of these soft skills will actually kind of come into play more and more. Because a lot of stuff that is capable of being automated, even if you are not like replacing a person to do it, chances are instead you will go ahead and replace some of your own tasks to not be taken up by this kind of stuff. So you won't like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Bang on in sync with you. Kuntal, what kind of tools are you using at the moment? Where do you, like, what is a real life application for you? Like, do you, I mean, and I want you to answer this as an individual as well as style look, right? Because, I mean, we have a lot of female founders watching this. Many of them are on their journey to build their own personal brand. Many of them are on the journey to get their product or service noticed, right?
Right.
And what's how are you using and leveraging AI to build your own personal brand and your business?
So I think one, like I said, right, I am actually using the tool is actually quite a bit to minimize or reduce like what I call administrative or work that I would have normally done by playing some music in the background and just kind of finishing it. So I've actually gone ahead and done cleanup of data files. I've created data files. I have gone ahead and even corrected code, like corrected code that I'm working on to through through AI. And it just, instead of me sitting and like going through every single line, I actually will just have them. I will just have. I've actually used ChatGPT. It works perfectly well in terms of creating. I've had ChatGPT even create code for something simplistic, so it's helped me in that sense. I've obviously used it for emails that I want, for content ideas that I've been interested in. And now, I mean, I think one of the things that came out this week in terms of announcements is OpenAI is actually introducing what they call GPTs, right? So it's on the line of apps. So now you can pretty much create your own little ChatGPT based on what you want to do. Let's say for whatever reason you want to have stickers being generated all the time and you need it, you can go ahead and create that kind of a GPT and have it, right? So like this thing is just running in the background and creating like stickers for you all the time based on what you've said. Uh, Again, similarly, I think for founders, if I had to kind of look at how, if I was starting out or if I were in the midst of even figuring out what I want to do, right? I think there are so many tools now out there that can allow you to go fast with the least amount of resources, right? So the biggest thing is actually going ahead and saying, okay, how do I test the market? How do I go ahead and figure out what it is that I want to do? And you can use ChatGPT, you can use a bunch of other tools. I'm happy to give you a list afterwards, where you can actually understand what are the hypotheses that I need to test. How can I go ahead and A/B test these hypotheses? How can I A/B test these hypotheses with the least amount of resources? So you can use DALI, Midjourney to kind of get your creatives or your content out there. You don't need to create a site. You can also have that created for you. You can basically do all of this very, very quickly. right? You don't need to deploy resources, you don't need to wait for someone to come along. And I think that is one of the advantages you have. Even different features that you're thinking about, or different things that you're thinking about, you can actually put that out there and just see what the reaction is. So I think you can spend less time wondering, less time kind of trying to figure out what it is, and just basically go ahead and test things out. From a style look perspective, AI actually has always been the bedrock of what we built. So there are multiple things that we have done, but I think to kind of, because of the algorithms and the models that we had built in, what we were able to do was, one, offer the service to women at a cost that they would have never imagined. And the other thing that we were able to do was, we were able to get women stylists, I mean stylists who could work virtually and work as freelancers, and they wouldn't have to interact with their clients one on one or see them anywhere. So that was basically the technology or the product that we had built, which enabled virtual styling to take place, and no interactions would happen between the user and the client, but yet the client felt like they were getting a personal styling experience.
That is
So that's,
so cool.
yeah,
In my very first business, when we started out, I mean, this was fairly about this would be around 2011, right? And at that time, image consulting was like the it big thing in India, because such a lot of these new retail brands, etc.,
yeah,
uh, were entering India. A lot of the shop floor staff didn't know how to talk fashion, didn't know how to
right,
recommend style, like personalized style advice. And that's when people like myself and my organization would be engaged to essentially upskill manpower to talk fashion, make recommendations, know how to differentiate a peplum to a crew neck to a cowl neck to a whatever, right?
yeah,
And also do all of that respectfully, because very often women are not everyone is Katrina Kaif, na? So
right,
you being able to really figure out what works for them and make those
yeah,
recommendations. I mean, it was one of the things that we would do as a image consulting and leadership development firm. So I totally get you, but I didn't quite utilize tech at that point, right? And I think that's such a game changer if you're able to infuse tech into it and standardize it. There's just so much more that you can do. Uh,
yeah,
Talk to us about branding, right, Kuntal? Like, you started off from scratch, whether it was building Style Nook or whether it was showcasing those upcoming brands that you would promote through Style Nook. What are
yeah.
your thoughts in and around branding? How do you think, in the with the onset of AI, has it become easier, has it become harder to build a brand? What are your thoughts?
So actually, let me kind of take an example, and then also, and then that also will explain how I think AI is going to impact, right? About let's say, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago or whatever, if you wanted to sell your product or sell your services, you were limited to the geography that you could access, right? It was only if you were a very big company, you were able to go ahead and reach out to everyone. You needed resources in order to do so. And then came the internet, or the browser, and suddenly that was no longer a problem. If you had a product and a service and you were sitting in one country, you could go ahead and reach somebody in another country, because you simply were able to kind of just go ahead and tell them, hey, here I am. And if you like this, I'll ship it to you. You don't have to worry about like geographic limitations, right? And it just suddenly changed everything for everyone. And the early, I mean, like the people who got onto the online space early enough, who did a few things, were like considered winners, but that competitive advantage didn't last for long, right?
Hmm.
Whoever else then came, it's not as if just because you came online you were going to win. It kind of almost became an imperative and said that, how do you not have an online presence, right? So
Hmm.
that's the same thing that's going to happen with AI. Everything that I spoke about before in terms of how easy it is to kind of go ahead and test your concepts, how easy it can be to also create products in a certain way. You can go ahead and personalize experiences, recommendation engines, NLP. I know I didn't describe it, but it's natural language processing, which almost will make search queries seem more human. Today when we type a query into search, we have to think like the machine and type something. We're going to come to a stage where the machines are actually able to understand what we type in and throw things up accordingly, right? So the challenge that's going to come in is everyone is going to have access to that, right? It's democratized. So AI itself is not going to help you build a brand, or is not going to help you be competitive. So then how do you stand out now in this sea of not just technology evolution, which is moving really fast, but also, the number of consumer products that are out there are just increasing, right? Because everybody has access to the internet, everybody has access to a bunch of other resources, so that everyone's thinking, yeah, let me start something. And I think that's where knowing what your brand is, knowing what your identity is, and staying true to it becomes very, very important, right? So I don't think you can blindly copy what other channels are, what other companies are doing, and go for other channels, right? You need to know, this is my audience, this is who I'm catering to, this is my brand, this is what I stand for, this is the tonality, this is the voice, this is basically who I am. It almost kind of comes down to two people meeting, and the kind of conversation that you and I have had, Avneet. We walk away knowing that, okay, I'm going to remember Avneet, right? Avneet stands out in my mind as someone who I like, who I respect, and I want to meet her again. I may meet somebody else, and you know what? Unfortunately, there's been nothing, because it's just been a very bland conversation. I'll have no idea about who that even was, and I won't be able to recollect anything. And I think brands have the opportunity to build up an identity that way, but it means being very true to who and what you are, right? Even if influencer campaigns are the rage, but if it doesn't make sense for your brand and your identity, you should have the ability to not do it, right? I know one, I mean, I love this particular brand, but I really also love what they did. They're a workwear brand in the US called MM La Fleur. Now they cater to women who are earning above a certain amount, mostly like CXOs or MDs, or not even maybe CXOs, but they're earning a good amount of money. The dresses are all $300 plus, right? They're also catering to women who are short on time, like lawyers, consultants, who are leading very hectic lives. So when MM LaFleur wanted to open stores, they didn't open stores in a shopping mall. They actually opened up stores around corporate workplaces. They opened up all their stores in places that were accessible to that woman who was busy, right? So again, a brand that is very clear about what they stand for and who they're targeting. So I think that sharpness will need to exist in order for a brand to be remembered, recalled, and to keep continuing.
Absolutely. I think what I'm taking from that is clarity becomes of trivial importance, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the primary thing that you need to be clear of, which is what is the problem that you're solving, how soon, how fast can you test it. And now that you have a clear idea of who your persona is or who you're looking to create value for,
Yes.
having a clear understanding of your audience. So what I'm hearing is clear problem articulation, clear audience, clear value prop. um, I think that's what's shining for me.
Yeah.
uh, for someone who is not very tech savvy, Kuntal, right? Like who is like, okay, might find a lot of these things very overwhelming. In fact, maybe they have a great idea, but they don't have the tech skills or the fluency with you know being the first adopter of every new tool who comes in. How would
Right.
you advise that they embrace that relationship with technology? That's one. And how would you advise they go about branding?
So I think as far as relationships with technology, my personal belief is experimenting and playing, right? I always encourage people who are around me, including including my dad, right? I've actually been trying to get him onto ChatGPT and saying, like, how see what's happening. So he obviously is not that keen or that interested in it. He's like, oh, this seems very overwhelming, as you said. But
Hmm.
then the other day, I put in a speech that he had given me to modify, and I put that into ChatGPT, and I showed him, see, this is what it did, and he saw it, and he was like, wow. He's like, I want to learn now how to do this, right?
Hmm.
So I think it's encouraging someone to constantly experiment, constantly play. The one thing I remember, even with different reports or different technology that we would introduce at Style Note, I would always ask everybody, go ahead and do it. You really cannot break this system. There is no way you can, right? It's it's just like created in a way that doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter what buttons you press, you cannot break it. So don't worry, have a blast, do whatever you want. Nothing will happen. So I think encouraging someone to go ahead and play with it is one. Two, always demonstrating what is the benefit, right? You need to kind of show someone that this is how you're going to benefit. Hopefully after this conversation, a few people, if they've not used some of the tools that we've been talking about, I hope they're encouraged to go ahead and use it, right? Because again, there is a learning curve for everything. But if I, as a human being, understand that, okay, I'm going to get better, I'm going to get something faster, I'm going to get something that is going to improve my life, yeah, I'll go ahead and, like, invest the energy in it. So I think that's how you always manage to communicate. In larger organizations, I think you have to kind of also understand each person has a way of absorbing, has a way of digesting. So for someone, let's say if you're in a larger organization and you wanted to kind of deploy generative AI, right? Someone might find ChatGPT very interesting because that's, they kind of see the value coming in from there. Like, let's say someone like an analyst. A creative person actually may get more blown away by Mid-Journey or DALI, right? Because that actually is something that pertains to them. So you have to also know that each person is going to take away a different aspect of it. And, that might be their entry into the whole world, and then they'll kind of go elsewhere.
Absolutely. I mean, for me personally, Kuntal, I think I published a book in Jan this year. I think we've spoken about that earlier. And
Congratulations.
there was a day when I was just pulling my hair out. I was like, dude, where the hell was all of this? And, the whole of the previous year when I was writing content, editing content, I took 11 months,
Yeah,
11 freaking months to get that book right and then put it out in Jan earlier this year. And I mean, now I don't think there's a single day that I don't use, Chat GPT. It's for me, it just helps me clarify my thinking, right? There are times when I mean, recently I got into an awkward situation with a colleague where I was just like, okay, how do I handle this? How do I have this difficult conversation and at the same time be amicable? And I was
yeah,
having that conversation with ChatGPT, right? I'm
helped.
now in the process of updating the book, and I'm continuously talking to ChatGPT to essentially make my communication and copy more crisp. Canva now has embedded like a whole layer of AI to improve visuals, right?
Yeah,
So I see like there's so many different tools doing such a lot of cool stuff, but I just wish it all came like 6 months earlier into my journey where I didn't lose as much time. And
yeah,
I mean, this episode and this entire series is brought to us by Simplified, and true to its name, it's literally simplified everything with your creative needs, right? As you
yeah,
said, there's the analytical people and the creative people, but for all those who are looking at video editing, making PPTs, making, writing templates, social media posts, XYZ, all of that can happen within one tool. I
yeah,
am also playing around with the tool. I try different features of it every day. I encourage others also to go experiment with it. Give us your feedback. With everyone who's a part of Incubate, we have a special discount code. Disha, please put that up in the chat so that people can go avail that code courtesy simplified and leverage this tool to save time. My intent is that, and my strongest desire is that founders don't hold themselves back from showing up because of overwhelm or because of self doubt. right? Often we think, okay, what am I going to say? I mean,
Right.
today that's not such a big issue anymore, right? Like you can literally strategize with ChatGPT. This is who I am. This is what I want to achieve. What do I say?
Yeah.
Suggest a framework to me, right?
Yeah.
And then when you're ready to say what you have to, of course, you need to use all the different, types of communication, whether it's visual, verbal,
Right.
or written communication. And how do you do that in the fastest, most consistent way? I mean, that's my intent. Your thoughts? Any final thoughts? And I just realized we've gone overboard with time, but
I
anything
know.
that you'd like to tell founders who on their branding journey?
No, I think, echoing what you said, and thanks for reminding me as well. I've been a little slow and lazy on the branding myself journey. But I've been thinking that I need to kind of get back to it and do more work on it. I think it's honestly recognizing that, these tools, like Avneet, right, has said, this can actually be your co-pilot, your sounding board, your little friend that nobody knows about, where you can kind of go ahead and get a lot of your work done and use it to your advantage, because honestly you have nothing to lose, right? If it's I just look at it at that, like, if you want to go ahead and start building your brand out, but you're running short on time, and as Avneet said, right, like we've all been there where we don't have enough time to do everything, but now suddenly these tools help you. So use them and start playing around with it, experiment. Maybe the first time you use it, the chat is not great, but it's like a friend or a intern who's very enthusiastic, that is willing to help you out, and you just need to kind of give maybe better instructions, better prompts, and say, okay, this is what I wanted. So I would honestly encourage everyone to use what you have at your disposal. Get out there, move fast, move out and see what it is that's happening. And I think it becomes a fun journey as well. What starts out as being intimidating or overwhelming at some point becomes a lot of fun. I hope so, if that's what it's been for you, Agni.
Absolutely. I love it. I can't go a day without it now. I just want to say thank you, Kuntal. I think you've, really helped us go from a macro to a micro perspective on so many different fronts, right? So thank you. This has been a very enriching conversation. Thank you
Thank
for
you
your
so much.
time. And I send you all the love in the world to further rise and shine.
Thank you so much, Avni. This was a fun conversation and loved being here.
Thank you. Please be backstage with us. With
Yeah.
that, everyone who's been watching, I hope this conversation has added value to you. Please feel free to reach out to Kuntal. She's very much present on LinkedIn in case you have any queries around, building your product, infusing AI, figuring out how she's kind of built a, virtual styling business, whatever that is. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll be back with yet another promising female founder and shine the spotlight on her. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
I encourage founders, especially female founders,
Yeah.
to use social media to tell their stories, create their brand, because that's going to reflect on the company and, well, revenues. So, what are some of the hacks and
I mean, the first thing is when it comes to content, right? People get in their head that content is such a big thing. What do I share? Biggest question, right? And we're doing this podcast. You can literally share. My first, let's say it's your first podcast. You can say, hey, this is what 3 steps or 4 things I did to organize my first podcast. Pick a great location, blah, blah, blah. Make sure you preserve, blah, blah, blah. You have maybe 1 or 2 cameras, right? You better prepare your question. That's just the learning you had from one simple moment.
correct?
If you share this learning online, you just share the story. So think about every day, like the basic of the basic, and just share that with people, because that's going to help so many more people, and that's where you start a community.